My best friend stole my dream job, and I don't know if I can forgive her. It was supposed to be my big break, my dream job, the one I had worked so hard for, the one I had poured my heart and soul into applying for, was finally within reach. But then, something happened that I never saw coming. My best friend, my closest friend, stole it from me. She didn't just get the position, I was literally forgotten in the process. And to make it worse, it wasn't even a case of her being more qualified. She had manipulated her way into my dream job, and now I'm left questioning everything I thought I knew about our friendship. I've spent the last few months processing what happened, and I still don't know if I can forgive her. I feel betrayed, and the worst part is, she's acting like nothing ever happened. This is the story of how I lost the job of my dreams and the best friend I ever had. It all started about 6 months ago. I had been working at a small company for a few years, but I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be long term. I wanted more, and I had my sights set on a job opening at a major company I had always admired. It wasn't just any job, it was my dream job. The kind of position people only get after years of building connections, experience, and reputation. I had the skills, the drive, and the passion, and I had finally built up the courage to apply. I spent weeks perfecting my resume, updating my portfolio, and crafting a cover letter that would stand out. I even reached out to a few people I knew within the company to try and get some insider information. The entire process felt like a roller coaster of nerves and excitement. When I finally submitted my application, I knew that I had done everything in my power to make my case. When the call came in for an interview, I nearly burst into tears. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for my entire career. I walked into that interview room with my head held high, confident that I was the right fit for the role. The interview went well. At least, that's what I thought. The hiring manager seemed impressed with my experience, and they even mentioned that my background aligned perfectly with the team's needs. I felt great. I felt like I had nailed it. I went home that night with a sense of relief and anticipation, knowing I had given my best shot. It wasn't going to be long before I heard back, and I was ready to take on whatever challenge came next. But there was one thing I didn't know yet. Someone I thought I could trust had other plans. About a week after my interview, I got a call from my friend Emma. She was practically vibrating with excitement when I picked up the phone. "Guess what?" she asked, barely giving me a chance to respond. "I got the job." I froze. I knew exactly which job she was talking about. My dream job. The job I had applied for. The one I was certain I had nailed. "Wait, what?" I stammered, feeling the ground shift beneath me. How did you?" I know, I didn't tell you I applied. But I've been talking to a few people at the company, and I thought it could be a good opportunity. I didn't think it was a big deal, and then I got the call this morning. They offered me the job." It felt like everything went silent for a moment. I just sat there, trying to process what she was saying. Emma had applied for the exact same position without telling me, and now she had my dream job. She was thrilled, excited for the future, talking about all the things she would do once she started. Meanwhile, I was just sitting there, numb. I tried to hide my disappointment, my anger, my confusion, but it wasn't easy. "That's amazing," I said, forcing a smile into my voice. "I'm really happy for you. It's a great opportunity." But inside, I felt like I had been blindsided. This wasn't just a random occurrence. This was my job, and now she had it. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why hadn't she told me she was applying? Why hadn't she been honest? She knew how much this job meant to me, and yet she had taken it without even a hint of hesitation. I tried to convince myself that maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. Maybe I was overreacting, but no matter how I tried to spin it, the truth was clear. She had stolen my dream job right out from under me. After the phone call with Emma, I went through a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, I genuinely wanted to be happy for her. She was my best friend after all. But on the other hand, I was crushed. This wasn't just about a job. It was about trust, betrayal, and feeling like I had worked so hard for something, only to watch someone else take it without even consulting me. In the days that followed, things between Emma and me were awkward, to say the least. She would text me, excited about her new role, about the onboarding process, about her first day at the company, and each time, I couldn't help but feel a little resentment bubbling up inside of me. I should have been the one getting those updates. I should have been the one talking about my new job, about the new opportunities, about the excitement of starting something fresh. But instead, it was her, and I was just left behind. We still hung out, of course. We still did all the usual things, went to the same bars, had dinner together. But it was different now. I couldn't look at her the same way. Every conversation felt like a reminder of what had been taken from me. I didn't want to admit it to anyone, especially not to Emma, but I started to feel a strange mix of jealousy and betrayal. She had been my best friend for years, and I never imagined something like this could happen between us. How could she take the job I had worked so hard for without even telling me? How could she pretend like everything was normal when I was suffocating under the weight of this unspoken tension? I tried to talk to her about it a couple of times, but it always ended up with me brushing it off. I didn't want to seem petty. I didn't want to look like a sore loser, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed a line. She knew how much this job meant to me, and she had taken it without any regard for my feelings. One evening, while we were out at dinner, Emma brought up the job again. She was so excited about the new opportunities, how she was already making plans for her future at the company. I forced a smile, but inside, I was screaming. "You know, I still can't believe I got it," she said, laughing. "I feel like I'm living a dream. I just feel so lucky to have this opportunity, you know?" My stomach churned. I nodded along, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Yeah, I can imagine. It's a big deal." But as I said those words, I couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness. It wasn't just a job to me. It was my dream job, and Emma knew that. She knew exactly how much it meant to me. So why was she so oblivious to how deeply this hurt? I sat there in silence, forcing myself to listen to her talk about her new role, about her excitement, about everything she was going to do. But all I could think about was how she had taken something from me. How could I let this go? How could I ever look at her the same way? The months following Emma's job offer were some of the most confusing of my life. The tension between us grew, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. No matter how much I tried to be happy for her, every conversation, every text message, every time she mentioned the job, only added fuel to the fire. I was drowning in my own bitterness, and I hated it. One evening, after a particularly draining conversation about her new role and all the things she was learning at the company, I finally reached my breaking point. I had been quiet for so long, letting her talk about her success while my own dream job slipped further out of my grasp. But that night, something inside me snapped. "Do you even hear yourself?" I blurted out, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Emma looked at me, taken aback. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you hear how you sound? You're so caught up in talking about this job like it's the best thing that ever happened to you. And I can't even get past the fact that you took it from me," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. There was a long pause. Emma blinked as if she hadn't expected me to be so direct. Her expression softened, but the hurt in her eyes was unmistakable. "I didn't take it from you," she said quietly. "I didn't even know you were applying for it." I could feel the anger bubbling up again. "Are you serious? You knew. You knew how much I wanted that job, Emma. You knew I had been working toward it for months, and then you just applied behind my back, and now you're acting like everything's fine. How do you think that feels?" Her face fell, and she looked down at her hands, clearly uncomfortable. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I honestly didn't. I thought I'd be a good fit for the job, too. I didn't know how badly you wanted it." I shook my head, feeling the weight of her words crash over me. "How could you not know? You're my best friend. You knew everything I went through to even get an interview for that job. And now, here you are, acting like it was just some coincidence. You didn't even consider how I'd feel." The silence between us was thick, and I could tell she was trying to find the right words. But nothing she could say would change what had happened. I had already been betrayed, and there was no undoing it. "I never meant for things to turn out like this," she said softly. "But I understand why you're upset. I really do, and I'm sorry. I wish I'd thought it through more." The apology felt empty. It wasn't enough. How could it be? She had taken something that had been mine, and now all I could feel was the deep ache of betrayal. I had trusted her, and she had crossed a line that was hard to come back from. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this," I whispered, more to myself than to her. Emma didn't respond right away. Instead, she just looked at me, her face full of regret, but also resignation. I knew in that moment that our friendship was never going to be the same again. Even if she was sorry, even if she understood why I was hurt, the damage had already been done. After that conversation, things between Emma and me became increasingly strained. We still saw each other at family gatherings and social events, but the spark of our friendship was gone. Every interaction felt forced, as though we were both pretending that everything was normal. But I couldn't pretend anymore, and neither could she. It was hard to avoid the truth. Emma had taken my dream job. She had known how much it meant to me, and yet she hadn't hesitated for a second to apply for the position behind my back. Even though she had apologized, I couldn't just forget what had happened. It wasn't just a job, it was the culmination of everything I had worked for. The years of hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices. All of it seemed meaningless now. Emma had stolen that dream from me, and nothing she said could undo the damage. The worst part? She didn't seem to grasp the magnitude of it. She still acted like we could just move on, like I could just forgive her, and everything would go back to the way it was. But it wasn't that simple. I tried to hide my feelings, to go back to the way things used to be, but every time I looked at her, I felt a pang of resentment. I couldn't shake the feeling that she had crossed an invisible line that I couldn't come back from. And then things got even worse. One evening, after another awkward dinner, Emma texted me with a single line. "Can we talk?" I already knew where this was going. She wanted to smooth things over, to make me see that she wasn't a bad person, that she didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was tired of the excuses. I had already told her how I felt, and yet there she was again, asking for another chance at a conversation I didn't think I was ready for. But something in me couldn't ignore the message, so I agreed to meet. We met at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without any distractions. I could tell from the way Emma was fidgeting with her coffee cup that she was nervous. Her usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by uncertainty. For the first time, I saw her not as the best friend I once knew, but as someone who had caused a deep wound in my life. She started the conversation before I could say anything. "I've been thinking about what happened, and I really hate that it's come to this point. I don't want to lose you as a friend." I sat there, staring at my cup of tea. I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her that I felt betrayed beyond repair. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and said, "I don't know what you expect me to say, Emma. You took something from me, something I worked so hard for, and then you just took it. I don't even know how to process that." She looked down at her hands, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I really didn't. I thought I was doing something good for myself. I didn't think it would affect you like this. I thought you'd be happy for me." "Happy for you?" I repeated, feeling the sting of disbelief. "How could I be happy for you when you knew how much I wanted that job? How could I be happy for you when you took it, knowing it was everything I've been working for?" Her face reddened, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerability. "I wasn't thinking about it that way. I should have been more aware. I should have told you before I applied. I should have considered how you would feel. But I didn't. And now, I'm paying for it." The silence hung between us for a few moments. I could feel the weight of her words, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. "I get that you didn't think about it," I said, my voice steady but edged with pain. "But that's exactly the problem, Emma. You didn't think. You didn't think about me. And that's what hurts the most." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I really am. I never wanted to make you feel like this." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and it almost made me want to believe her. But the damage was done. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this. I don't know if I can just go back to how things were." I felt the truth of those words hit me hard. I wasn't sure if I could forgive her. And even if I could I ever trust her again? I didn't have an answer for that yet. The weeks following our conversation felt like a blur. I didn't know where to go from here, and honestly, I didn't know if I was even capable of moving forward with our friendship. Emma had apologized. She had owned up to her actions, but the wound she had caused felt too deep. I spent a lot of time alone, reflecting on everything that had happened. I replayed the moments in my mind over and over, wondering if I should have handled things differently. Maybe I should have confronted her sooner, or made more of an effort to understand why she did what she did. But no matter how many times I went over it, I kept coming back to the same conclusion: she had taken something that was mine, something I had worked hard for, and without a second thought. It wasn't just a job. It was my chance to prove to myself and the world that I was capable of achieving my dreams. and she had stolen that from me. I talked to a few of my closest friends during this time, trying to make sense of it all. Most of them said I should forgive her, that people make mistakes, and that I should move on. But there were a few who told me that it was okay to feel hurt, that it was okay to be angry. They understood why I was struggling with forgiveness, and they didn't rush me to get over it. I took their advice to heart. This wasn't something I could just get over. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about rebuilding trust, and that wasn't something that could happen overnight. One evening, I ran into Emma at a mutual friend's party. I hadn't planned on seeing her, and I definitely wasn't prepared for the awkwardness that followed. She smiled at me, but it didn't feel like the same smile I used to get. It felt forced. She made small talk with me, but I could tell that she was walking on eggshells. I wanted to be angry, to confront her right then and there, but something inside me told me that wasn't the way forward. I excused myself from the conversation, stepped outside to get some air, and thought long and hard about where I was. Could I continue this friendship, or had it reached its breaking point? When I got home that night, I sat down and wrote a message to Emma. It wasn't easy to put my feelings into words, but I knew it was time. Emma, I've been thinking a lot about everything. I'm still hurt by what happened, and I'm not sure how I feel about moving forward. I need time to figure out if I can rebuild trust with you. But right now, I don't know if I can forgive you yet. Please understand that this isn't about you as a person. It's about me learning how to process this. I hesitated before hitting send. Was this the right thing to do? Was I pushing her away for good? But deep down, I knew I needed space. I needed to figure out what I wanted, not just for our friendship, but for myself. The message was sent, and with it, I let go of the anger I had been carrying for so long. The next few weeks were strange. Emma didn't reply to my message right away, and that gave me the space I needed to start processing everything. I focused on myself, trying to reclaim my sense of direction and move forward from the pain of losing my dream job and my best friend in a way I never expected. I threw myself into my work, started working on personal projects I had neglected, and spent time with other friends who had supported me through all this. I also began to realize something important during this time. It wasn't just about the job. Sure, I had lost something I had been working toward for years, but what hurt even more was how Emma's actions had made me question the trust and bond we had shared. The job loss, the betrayal, those things could eventually heal, but regaining the trust that had been broken, that was much harder. As the days passed, I found peace in little things. I started going to the gym more regularly, reconnecting with hobbies I had put on the back burner, and even volunteering at a local charity. Slowly, the weight I had been carrying started to lift. I didn't need Emma's approval or validation anymore. I was learning how to stand on my own. Then, about a month after I sent that message, I got a call from Emma. I had no idea what to expect, but when I saw her name pop up on my phone, my heart skipped a beat. It had been so long since we'd talked, and I didn't know if I was ready to face her again. I answered the phone with a cautious, "Hello?" "Hey," Emma's voice came through, quiet but sincere. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I owe you an apology. Not just for the job thing, but for everything. I know I messed up. I should have talked to you first. I shouldn't have kept you in the dark. I've hurt you, and I can't undo it, but I want to try and make things right." I didn't know what to say at first. I felt a mixture of relief and hesitation. Part of me wanted to jump back into things, to pretend like nothing ever happened. But the other part of me knew that it wasn't that simple. Our friendship couldn't just go back to how it was before, not after everything. "Emma," I said slowly, trying to find the right words. "I'm not going to lie. I'm still hurt by everything. I'm still processing it. But I appreciate you reaching out and being honest with me." "I understand," she replied. "I don't expect everything to be okay right away. But I hope we can find a way forward, even if it's just taking it one step at a time." The conversation wasn't as easy as I had hoped. There were still so many questions, so much uncertainty about what the future of our friendship would look like. But at least we were talking, and that was a start. In the end, I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about finding a way to move forward, even if it meant taking baby steps. Maybe one day I could forgive her. Maybe one day things could go back to the way they were. But for now, I was focused on what mattered most: my own growth, my own healing, and learning to trust myself again. So, looking back on everything, was it worth it? Was exposing my feelings and confronting Emma the right choice? To be honest, I still don't know. What I do know is that this experience has changed me. It has made me more aware of my boundaries, my worth, and what it truly means to trust someone. Sometimes we need to go through the hardest moments to figure out who we are and what we're willing to accept in our lives. Has something similar ever happened to you? Have you ever had a friend betray you, even unintentionally? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories and how you've navigated difficult friendships. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about my journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to stand up for yourself. But in the end, it's always worth it.